Hey everybody, Lincoln here. You may not know this, but I just got off a train in Holland thanks to this VR headset. And what have I been trying to do? Learn languages. Today I'm going to be profiling two apps and we'll see if we can actually use these VR headsets to get anywhere with our language learning. For this assignment, I decided to test language learning apps on the Meta Quest 2. So for some background, this standalone headset was developed by Reality Labs, which is now a division of Meta, or Facebook, for those of you that want to call the great all-powerful social media god by its name. And it was launched in, if you can believe it, October 13th of 2020. So we're talking pandemic-era technology. This Quest 2 was a massive commercial hit, and it's widely considered to be the best-selling VR headset of all time. Mostly, it made wireless, high-quality VR accessible to mainstream consumers. It cost something like over $300 when it was new, and just by point of reference, my son picked up this used one for around $100. So it was not without controversy when it came out. It faced some pushback because you had to link to Facebook to play it. Regardless of everything, what I can tell you is that it really is an immersive platform. So our first app up is Mondly VR, and this was created by ATI Studios. This app was a true pioneer in the space, originally launching its VR integration in February 2017, before landing on the Quest Store in August 2021. It was highly anticipated and quickly became a top-selling educational app on the Oculus platform. Mondly is a paid app, so we paid $15 for it, and it plugs us into some conversational scenarios. It uses things like speech recognition and virtual avatars to simulate interactions. You pick your target language, they've got a bunch. Suddenly you're in a taxi or in a train or a restaurant, and you're trying to order food or conduct service exchange with an avatar who is, well, patient and not patient with your mispronunciations. So let's try. Making a new friend on a train. So that is the good.
Goedemiddag.
Goedemiddag. Goedemiddag.
Hoe heet u?
Ik heet Lincoln.
Aangenaam kennis te maken.
Fijn je te ontmoeten.
Spreek langzaam.
Fijn je te ontmoeten.
Ik snap het niet.
So as you can hear, I'm speaking Dutch, and I'm not a native speaker, but well enough that a native speaker would have understood what I said. The limitation of this is we're in a very realistic train. There's a person across from me speaking to me. Native speaker's done the recording. Again, it's very entertaining and immersive, but I've got three options, and if I diverge from this menu of three things that this person is expecting me to say to her, it doesn't recognize it. So we're now in a hotel room with Mondly, and the design of the space is beautiful. Really, it's impressive. You feel like you're in a hotel room, but the limitations of the interface are still there. You've got your Dutch sentence, you've got an English translation that's immediately available, and you've got Mr. Uncanny Valley hotel bellperson staring blankly at you. So as we can see, Mondly is not without its limitations. The environment's really cool, it's immersive, it's big. You might as well feel like you're in the space. So the illusion is very effective. The app linguistically less so. As we saw, you have a limited number of exchanges with your interlocutors in these situations, and you only have a short menu of responses you can give it. So as far as an immersive experience to go beyond a tightly scripted exchange, it doesn't let you do that much. You see what you're hearing in the target language along with an English translation. You see what your three answers are, and as you try to go off script, it simply doesn't understand you and directs you back to the menu. So the power of this app is really limited for all of its aesthetic beauty. So might it be a good way to access a situation for the first time? Yes, but you're going to quickly run out of steam as you try to vary what you're doing. So the next app that we're going to look at is called Language Lab, and this is an indie app developed by Language Lab VR. It launched in July of 2022, calls itself the CrossFit of language learning apps on the page. Most importantly, it's free. And so it's had a lot of downloads just because the point of entry is so cheap, being zero. So Language Lab drops you into an immersive 3D kitchen in the first lesson.
in de
and
beker.
starts talking to you in the target language
Mes.
right away. So it's asking me to put a knife
Leg het mes in de
into a
kom.
mug. And now I've got
Mes.
to put the knife into the bowl. And so
Leg het mes op het bord.
it doesn't give you much context.
Mes.
You just have to intuitively figure out what you're working with.
Zet de beker op het bord.
And it's taken a lot of getting used to learn how to function in this 3 space. You really do feel like you're sitting in a 3-dimensional space, even though it's purely an
Zet de
illusion.
schoenen in de dressoir.
And just to tell you a challenge I had, so I'm trying to learn how to say, or trying to follow the task of putting the shoes into this dresser over here. Those shoes are on the other
Zet
side
de
of a window
schoenen
that
in de
is real
dressoir.
and there. And when I try to reach them, my hand can't get to it because I got my hand hitting a glass in real life, as you can hear from the sound. So
Zet de schoenen in de dressoir.
you certainly have to have ideal physical conditions where you're at in real space before you can be stress-free in accessing virtual
Zet de
reality
schoenen
space
in
here.
de dressoir.
And I heard you. Thank you very much. So let's review what we just saw. Again, you're in this space and you're touching things, which is great, but it seems very limited, at least in terms of conversation. This really seems for those first steps in language learning where you want to simply gain experience with what a physical object might be called. And so I think it's effective with that because you're manipulating it, it feels like you're there, you feel like you're touching it, and you're hearing it and seeing it at the same time. So let's talk about SLA theories and how these tasks align. First, Mondly. So I want to talk about the interactionist perspective. And so as we saw, the framework of Mondly emphasizes the role of interaction, of feedback, of noticing and language development. You are hearing authentic speech from native speakers and with the audio. And so the input is designed to be comprehensible. You've got a context, you've got translations on either side. You're interacting, you're receiving feedback. You should be noticing gaps between what you're saying and then what you're expected to say. So all of that is good. The question for me is, does it actually allow for true negotiation of meaning? And so I don't think it does very much. You can respond according to a script, but you're not actually trying to spontaneously answer on your own and then negotiate meaning from there. It doesn't clarify, it just makes you repeat the line. The feedback's really rigid, as well as your options. So might be great for lowering an affective filter for shy speakers, getting them used to interacting. Again, it sounds like you're talking to an actual interlocutor in the target language, but it doesn't do much beyond that. Now I want to look at the usage-based perspective and talk about Language Lab. This approach assumes language learning is driven by exposure to language and use. And so learners don't memorize rules, they just store exemplars. Abstraction is going to emerge gradually. So we can see that Language Lab really is a very, very, very basic level usage-based perspective. You sit down at the table and you have to know what the things are called to be able to eat, especially if you have a host offering you things or asking you for things. So we're repeatedly interacting with objects, we're hearing their names, we're doing things with them, so we're responding to commands. And so we know that this recurrent task is going to demand us to entrench meaning through this actual use. So that part is effective. That stated, it only gets us so far. Really what we're doing is learning vocabulary at a very basic level. So to wrap up, both apps show how technology doesn't just deliver tasks, it reshapes what tasks are possible by sitting in a 3D space. You can actually interact with the environment in a way that you can't if you're just going to be on a phone-based app. That stated, it's a bit shallow. We know that we can have these simulations on Mondly, but because the software itself seems to be underpowered for authentic interaction, we can only get so far. Language Lab is a really fun usage-based playground. Patterns might emerge from experience, but it really seemed like you'd have to invest a lot of time in learning this foundational vocabulary, and then the app stops. It's free, and you get what you pay. Of course, all of this review raises a really big question for us language teachers. How could we integrate this technology into our classrooms or curricula? Well, I think that there's actually 3 different things we should consider here. One is the question of the technology itself. There is a learning curve with the Oculus. It takes time to learn how to put it on, how to manipulate the environment, how to move, how to not run into things when you're reaching for objects in the real world. So students will need to invest time in that. I think the second piece is looking at the Language Lab app. It comes in at a much lower level of of sophistication. Really, you're sitting in a three space, you're learning vocabulary, you're hearing words, you're connecting sounds to text and to objects at the same time. So I think this could be good for a jump start, especially on things like early vocabulary acquisition, phonology, getting used to the sounds of the language. I could see this as being a lab type exercise or homework type exercise for students. Of course, that raises the question of access to tech. Does everybody have an Oculus where they could just use it for initial homework? I think the third one is our app Mondly and how we could integrate that. I think this one could fit with discrete lessons if our lessons match what we have in Mondly. Again, the notion of being on a train and making small talk or checking into a hotel and doing what you need to do. I would say it needs to be supported by teacher instruction, by conversation in class, by real world application of all of the text and moves that students are learning in Mondly. Because of its scripted nature, it's not going to get students to the next level of spontaneous interaction on their own. So, I think that what will I be doing myself? There's a couple more apps that I'd like to try out, though I don't think that I'm going to somehow start budgeting way more time for VR language learning. And as I go about my day, it might be something fun to try or play with, especially if I'm picking up a brand new language and it's one of them covered. But I really don't see this as a replacement yet with the apps that I reviewed for a lot of the traditional learning methods we've been using so far. So again, Lincoln Snyder, having reviewed 2 language learning apps on our VR headset, and thank you for watching. Bye.